Hi everyone, welcome to this video series for our course about data as an art material. In this first week, the video lessons are going to be mainly focused on introducing the platforms we're going to use for the course, which are p5.js and glitch.com. In this first video, we're going to give a quick overview of p5.js, and then we'll talk about glitch and give you a bit of a walkthrough of this as well. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit about coming to p5.js if you know processing, the Java sort of relative of p5. So that's going to be our focus for this week. We're going to kind of set the stage on the platforms we're going to be using. You may be already familiar with these platforms, so in this case, you can probably safely skip these videos or maybe just watch them again for a bit of a refresher. So let's jump right in. So for this class, we're going to be using p5.js. The reason we're going to be using p5 obviously is because it is browser-based, and given that this class is virtual, working in the browser as our output is going to make it a lot easier for us to collaborate, communicate, share our results, and so forth. Now p5.js is a relative of the processing project. So some of you may be familiar with processing. So processing has been around for, this is its 20th anniversary now. And some of you have learned processing in your introduction to creative coding in the program. We're going to be switching to JavaScript in this course because, like I mentioned, primarily working through the browser is going to make life a lot easier now that we are virtual. So P5 was a project that was initiated by Lauren McCarthy and is now maintained by different people, lots of volunteers. This is Lauren's website. And what Lauren did is she was really inspired by processing, but then wanted to explore, what if we took the philosophy of processing, which is creating an environment that's easy to get started in, even if you don't know anything about programming, making it accessible to artists, designers, and educators, but then take that same idea, move it from the Java environment into JavaScript and the world of web browsers. Initially, processing was also geared towards the web through the Java browser plugin, but over time, this has really faded away, and the support for the Java browser plugin has become just worse and worse over the years. So nowadays, if you want to do something that's going to live inside the web browser, JavaScript is really the way to go. So P5 came in and kind of filled that void. So it's not a one-to-one port of processing, but it is inspired by and follows a lot of the same philosophy. So if you know processing a little bit, you're going to find it very easy to make your way around P5.js. And we'll talk about the differences, the key differences between the two in the next video. First, what we're going to do is, in this video, is we're going to talk about the platform we're going to be using to write our code this semester. Now, if you go to the p5.js website, you'll see that they have this p5 editor. So what the p5 editor does is it gives you a programming environment right into the browser. It's great. It works, excellent. You can write some code right in here, and then run that code and see what happens on the right. Okay? So it's a great environment to develop in. It has a built-in console for the errors and so forth. However, we're not going to be using it for this course. And the primary reason we're going to switch from the P5 editor to a platform called Glitch is because Glitch will allow us to do collaborative programming. And this may not be obvious at first why this is really important, but being in a remote virtual context, I guarantee you that you will appreciate down the road when we're working on code examples and projects, having the ability to get somebody to come into your code remotely and help you out, that person likely being me, helping you troubleshoot some of the issues you're having and so forth. So we're going to talk about in this video how, first of all, what is Glitch, how is it different from the P5 editor, and how we can set up a blank project on Glitch that we're going to be reusing throughout the semester to start writing our code examples. So in summary, right, the P5.js editor is fantastic, but we are not going to use it for this class. Instead, we're going to program all of our P5 code inside this platform called Glitch. All right, so this is the Glitch website. You can get to that website at glitch.com. You can create a free account for it. And basically what Glitch provides you is a place to host websites. You can create static websites on Glitch, but you can also create dynamic websites where you can program both the client side of things, so that's the HTML and the JavaScript, but you can also write server-side applications for your web application, which is really nice. And that's going to be another reason why we switched to Glitch in this course, is that for some of the examples we'll be talking about when it comes to accessing data from web APIs, things like this, we're going to dip our toes just a tiny little bit into Node.js and the world of server-side programming, and Glitch is going to make this process very straightforward compared to if we were to have to roll out our own environment from scratch. So it's going to make it very easy to do that. So once you have an account on Glitch, you can simply start creating projects. As you'll see, I've been creating lots of projects lately on this website. So we're going to start just by making a just a basic static web page, and we're going to customize it so that it's going to become our starter template for this this semester. So Glitch always takes a little bit of time to load up. And they give you an explanation here why that's the case. That's because by default the apps you write on Glitch are going to be asleep. They're going to be sleeping. They use that as a way to manage the shared resources between all the different users. So there's a bit of a time for your project to kind of boot up once you activate it, but once that's done, everything else is pretty responsive. The other reason we're going to create the template from scratch here is that's going to be a way for me to kind of walk you through the different features of the Glitch environment here. And we'll kind of explain all the different pieces, what they do, and then, yeah, kind of build our template at the same time. So the first thing I'm going to do is rename the project. So here, Glitch gives us a random name every time we remix something or create another project. We'll talk about remixing in the next video. So this project, we're going to call it RTA842 blank. Yeah. So we'll call this our project template for RTA842 data as material. Excellent. Now keep in mind when you give a name to your project on Glitch, those names are all shared with, like the pool of names is shared with everybody who has an account on Glitch. So you may have to get creative sometimes with how you come up with your names. If you pick something very basic, odds are somebody else has already claimed that name. So probably not too many people are using the RTA842 suffix, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, so while we're on this page here, we can see we have a few different options. So this is just a description of the project. We can remix this project, which we'll do in the next video. That's going to be how we take our template and then turn it into new assignments, new ideas throughout the term. And then from here, there's a few different editor settings that we can go through. There's different keyboard shortcuts for Glitch. You can learn them or not. Some of them are pretty handy. There's this check mark here. You can change the theme as well. I like the dark theme. It's nice on my eyes. And then there's this checkbox here, which has refresh app on changes. We'll see when we do a demonstration in a second. One of the cool things with programming inside Glitch is that as you change the code, things refresh immediately in real time. So if you're used to the workflow and processing to kind of write some code, hit play, see what happens, hit stop, kind of go back and forth, this is going to become a lot more fluid in P5 and Glitch. So we're going to leave that enabled. And then finally, there's the option to archive the project. I'm going to just talk about this really briefly. So once you create a project on Glitch, basically it exists forever. You cannot actually delete it. So it's going to be part of your account, but you do have the option to archive it. So once you archive something, it's not actually deleted. It's still there, but it's no longer visible on your public profile. So if you've made something and you really want to kind of tuck it away and make it invisible, this is one way that you could archive your project, but you can't actually delete projects on Glitch. Everything just lives forever. Okay. All right, so before we go into the rest of the interface, let's talk about this window here on the left. So these are your files for your web project. Okay, there's a folder called assets, which we'll be able to upload files to if we need it. There's this license file, which we don't need. I'm going to delete it. Goodbye. The README file is just some kind of, you can put any text you want here, introduction. We don't need a README file for this project, so I'm also going to trash that. We don't need a to-do list. Goodbye. We will need an index page, which is way too complex for our needs, so we'll edit that in a second. This is an example JavaScript. We're going to create our own, so I'm going to delete that. So as you can see, I'm kind of like throwing everything in the garbage here. We're going to more or less start from scratch. But the idea here is this is what the server has. These are the files that are available to you on your server space on Glitch for this particular project. So let's clean up here this HTML. We're going to make this a really basic HTML page. We don't need any of this template stuff. We are going to delete everything and only keep the head and the body tags. Okay? If you've never seen HTML before, that's okay. We're not going to really spend too much time in this course talking about building HTML, but basically what HTML is, it's a markup language for creating a website, and it's made out of these embedded nested tags. So we see here we have a HTML tag, right? That's being closed over here. That's the tag that's going to define our whole page, our whole document. And then within it, we need to have usually at the minimum 2 tags. We have a head tag and a body tag. So the head is the headers, where we're going to set up initial things for the page, and then the body is where the actual content of the website goes. Now, in our case, this is going to be completely filled by a p5.js script, so we're just going to have an empty body on our web page. Okay. So in order to use p5.js in Glitch or in any other environment where you're creating a static web page, is first we have to include the JavaScript file for the p5.js library. So we have some options here. We could upload that file to our server. We could download it right from the p5.js website. We could go and grab the library files or single files, right? This is the p5.js. This is the core library. Or what I prefer to do is just use what's called a content delivery network, or a CDN. So what this is it gives us a link to a static version of the file that's being hosted on the web somewhere. Okay? So we can go over here and copy the script tag. Okay? And that's going to give us a script tag that we can paste right into our code here. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And you can see now it's including a script, right? And the source for this script is going to be a URL that points to this version of the p5.js library. So we're never actually downloading p5 onto the Glitch server because everything is online anyways. Instead, what our page is going to do when it first loads is going to go to this website and it's going to grab the p5.js library, download it at the beginning, and then it's going to move into our program. Then we're going to add a second script tag here, and we're going to call this one sketch.js. Okay. And sketch.js is going to be where we put the actual code for our program. So you may notice here on the left, I don't have a sketch.js, so we're going to just create it. So we can add files. Just going to say, let's make a file called sketch.js. I'm going to add the file. So this is just a blank empty file. Right? So you can see now this is this is saying sketch.js, right? It's going to include this, whatever we put into this file over here is going to get embedded inside our HTML page. So let's make sure this works. We're going to write our first p5.js program. I'm not going to go over the syntax in this video. That's going to be for the next video coming up this week. But you will automatically, I'm sure, recognize some of the ingredients. Let's make the font size a little bit bigger. Some of the ingredients that you're familiar with coming from processing. Okay? So let's test this and make sure it works. Okay. So as you can see on the right here, we have a space now where, we can start to put, have some stuff happen. So for example, having a circle follow our mouse cursor. Okay? Now by default, when you create an HTML web page, there's kind of some default padding and margins to HTML elements. That's why I get this white border around the sketch. So we're going to take a second here to go and fix that into our HTML page. We're going to add a style tag. We could also include here link to an external style sheet or CSS file, but we don't need to do that because our styling is going to be very simple. And again, this is not meant to be a tutorial on style sheets. We're going to set a padding of 0 and a margin of 0. And you don't have to worry. You won't have to do these steps that I'm going through every time you want to create a project on Glitch. I'm just walking you through here what our template is going to be like, just so it's not a mystery moving forward. And then in the future, you're going to just start from the template, remix it, so you won't have to redo all of these steps, but at least you'll know what went behind it. So here I've said, put a padding of 0 and a margin of 0. So now there's no more gap between the size of my sketch window, right? The sketch element in the window, and the the area that I've been given for this this web page. Okay? And you'll notice if I resize it, currently it's not automatically resizing. We can do that. We'll maybe do that in the next video. But if I don't mess with the size here and just refresh, it'll fill the size available automatically. Okay, so our template has two files. It has an index, which is including p5 and the sketch. And then this is where the sketch.js is where we are actually going to write our code. Now, the last thing we're going to add to this template, as you'll notice here, is throwing us some errors because Glitch is not aware of p5. So there's some errors that appear in their editor every time we use a p5 keyword or function, and that's going to get kind of annoying. So we're going to add one more file to our sketch here, and we're not going to go too much into detail as to what that does, but this is a file that's going to give some instructions to the code parser that's in here, and it's going to get rid of those errors. So I'm going to add this eslint rc.json, and I'm going to paste a whole bunch of JSON stuff in there. We don't need to dive into this. We'll just leave that file there in every program we write, and we're going to just ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. But then having done this, if we refresh the page here and I kind of reload the project, you'll see that the errors are gone. Okay, so this is what this JSON eslint rc.json file is going to do for us. We don't need to dive into how this works, at least not for this course. Okay? So we're going to throw that in our template just to prevent Glitch from driving us crazy with all these errors messages, which in fact are not error messages for us. All right. So this is going to be our basic template moving forward for the course that we're going to use to kind of create sketches from. So before we moved on from that, just really quickly, I want to go over a few of the other interesting features of the Glitch editor. So you may have noticed here we have kind of a split screen view, right, where we get to see our sketch and then we get to see the code side by side. This is how I like to work. We can make this a little bit smaller. We can adjust these. This is how I like to work, but you don't necessarily have to do it this way. So it automatically refreshes, but then if you want to hit a page refresh, you can click this button. The way that if you accidentally close this tab here, right, we basically have two ways that we can show the outcome of our sketch. One is next to the code, which is what we were doing here. The other one is in a brand new window. So we could do that as well. If I put it into a new window, what this is going to do is it's going to open a new tab, and now we can see our sketch output is filling the entire screen, but then we can still go in here and change the code, and then that's going to get reflected over here. Obviously this tab, right, could be separated out as a smaller window if you wanted to. You can even have it live in two places at once. That's fine. And what I want to point out to you when you do that is the URL simply changes. Okay? So if you want to share with somebody, here's my finished project or P5 app on the web. The link that you can use is the name of your app.glitch.me. Okay. On the other hand, if you want to edit a sketch, right, you see we have a slightly different URL over here. So you can share that URL and you'll be able to share the code editor with somebody as well. So these different links here are available at, if you click on the share button, right, you can share your project with others. You can edit permissions. So by default, everybody can see your code, but not everyone can edit your code. So if you want other people to come in and make changes to your project, works kind of like Google Docs. You can add some other Glitch users as project members, and then they'll be able to make some changes to your code. And these are the different URLs, right? So the live site is basically the page that you get when you open a separate window, and you can use that link. Or you can link to the code editor version, and this is the same project. It's just kind of two different views of that project. So if you want to share the code with somebody, you can use that link. And if you just want to show the end result, you can use this link over here. The other cool thing about adding project members, and then when you share your code with others, is that multiple people can be working on the code at the same time on Glitch, which is really fantastic. It's hard for me to demonstrate that right now in the video because I'm only a single human being. But if I were to share this project with somebody else and made them a member, their icon would appear over there at the top here, and we would both be able to edit the code at the same time, much like you can have two people working together in a Google Doc. This is a wonderful feature of Glitch, and this is going to come in really handy this semester if you get stuck. If you have a problem with your projects and you need some help, you'll be able to invite me or somebody else into your code and really help you troubleshoot things straight from the code, which is almost as good as if I was in the room with you trying to work through some of the issues. And that is really the main reason we're spending all this time learning about Glitch, even though Glitch also has a few other nice things that are worth mentioning. So Glitch makes it very easy to share your code afterwards. It just leaves on the web. You can also share the finished product just by using the glitch.me URL. And then finally, it's got a couple of other worthy tools that are interesting to mention. This is a little bit more for advanced use, but one thing that I want to point out is that every Glitch project you create is in fact a Git repository. If you're familiar with Git, we're not going to get into it in this course, but Git is a version control software that allows you to keep track of revisions to a code project as changes are being made to it. So what that means is that you can, if you want to, you can export this project as a Git repository. So you can, you could export it, for example, upload it into your GitHub account or something like that. But you can also use kind of some of the basic features of Git right into the window of Glitch, right into the editor window. So for example, there's this rewind tool over here, which if I press it, basically allows you to go back in time in your into your project. Okay. And now we haven't done too much here. We can see this was like the original template that was created. We haven't done too much today, too many changes, so I cannot roll back too far. I can go back to an earlier version right before I deleted all of this stuff. But this is very handy so that if you're if you're working on a project, I'm going to close this, and you break your code accidentally and you just can't figure out what you did. It used to work, it doesn't work anymore. With the rewind feature, you can simply just roll back the clock and you can go back to the way your code was yesterday if you want to. So you'll be able to see a timeline. The more changes you make, Glitch kind of like automatically figures out what are some of the good save points. So if you work on something every day, usually you'll be able to have some save points that you can roll back to, and you'll be able to see what are some of the differences between this version and the previous version. So even if you don't necessarily revert the whole thing, sometimes you can see what you made differently, and that may help you kind of unlock the key to fixing your project. And then if you, let's say I wanted to go back, which I won't, as I don't want to have to redo all of this. If I decided, oh, that was a huge mistake deleting all these files, I could click rewind project and it's going to kind of bring it back to the way that it was before. Okay, so this is a really useful little tool that's built into the glitch editor. So the next thing I want to talk about is the console. So as you'll know, when you're programming from processing, it's very important to be able to have access to the console at the bottom of your editor window. And this will allow you to do things like, for example, in JavaScript, you can use console.log and you can print some messages, or you can see the values of variables, for example. This is also where you're going to see the errors. So if if I make a typo and I write Urkel instead of circle, I'm getting a black screen here, but there's no clear indication that something went wrong because we have suppressed a little bit of the error messages using the ESLint package over here. So when you're in glitch, that's really the main downside to using glitch, is that getting to the console is a little bit more work than in the p5.js web editor or in the processing app, where the console is just right there for you to see immediately. So it's easy to get used to it, but it's a bit of a learning curve to find out where it is, and then just to make sure that you open up if something is not behaving the way that you think it should be behaving. So the way that we bring up the console in glitch is not this terminal over here. So if you try to open this terminal, just in case you stumble upon it, what this opens is the terminal for your program, like on the server. Okay, we're going to use that when we talk about Node.js, but this is not the same as the console for the web browser. So the way we open the console is at least in Chrome, and I'm going to recommend that you use Chrome for all of our videos and lessons this semester, but you'll be able to find something similar in other browsers. We're going to open the developer tools here inside Chrome. So under more tools, developer tools, there's a keyboard shortcut. On Windows, it's Control-Shift-I, which you might want to remember that because it makes it very easy to open the tools. So if I click on this, this is going to open up a tab at the bottom of my browser window. And one of those things here is going to be the console. All right. So here, for example, right, I made a mistake, and this is giving me that error right here. It's saying circle is not defined, and it's telling me which line of the code is causing the problem, right? It's on line 7, so I can go here and I can say, oh yeah, this is a dumb mistake, I can fix it. And now you can see this console.log mousex is outputting the value of mousex to the console. And this is neat. If it's the same number over and over, it just accumulates here, so it doesn't keep printing it. But if it changes, we can see the values of mousex. So the console is very, very important, very useful. And yeah, as soon as you have a typo in there, you'll get some kind of error and then a line number that you can refer to. So the console is very helpful. This is how you find it, right? So if you're looking for the console, you open your developer tools, and then there it is. So it's not automatically there, but it's a really good idea to have the console open when you're programming, because you'll see the errors right away. And then if you have no errors, everything is going to look fine and dandy. Some of these yellow things here, these are just warnings. You can ignore them most of the time. You can also clear the console here using this button. So here you can see that I've got no issues, just some warnings. You can even, if you don't want to see these warnings, you can just take that off here in the levels. You can just keep the errors, the info. You can leave the info, because if you do a log, that will happen here, but you can disable the warnings if they annoy you, and then I don't see any of those anymore. But if I do, make a typo, maybe I forget a letter here when I'm typing, I will get these errors appearing into the console. Okay, so this is really important, because otherwise you're programming blind, basically, and unless you really know what you're doing, and even then, it's really difficult to troubleshoot and figure out where things go wrong. So the console is really the only downside of glitch. We have to rely on the console from the browser, which is a little bit more intimidating than the built-in console in the P5 web editor, which is friendlier and easier to use, but it's still there. We just need to know that we have to remember to turn it on each time. The other thing you can do as well with the console is where do we go to do this? You can move it around as well. It doesn't have to be. Don't need the sidebar. Don't need to inspect. Where's the button to do that? It doesn't, oh, you can dock it in different places, right? So I like to dock it on the bottom, or if you are lucky, you have a second monitor, you can put the console in its own separate window, so it's not in the way. So you can just have it, in its own separate window that you can tab into if you want to see what the errors are. Okay? So this is really like up to you where you choose to locate it. Okay. All right. So this was an overview of basic overview of p5.js. We'll dive a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the p5.js language in the next video, but this was introducing you to glitch.com. So the first thing you should do is create an account on Glitch, and once you do that, you'll be able to follow along in the next video. So we went over some of the basic features of Glitch, like things like a rewind, how we can change the output, right? Have it next to our code or in a separate window. We went over the file manager over here and just the basic ingredients of a p5.js static web page. We have an HTML page and then our sketch over here. Yeah, so that should be enough to get us started. In the next video, I'll be talking about the differences between processing Java, if you're coming from that background, and how to transition quickly into P5 and the world of JavaScript. So I will see you there.